I kind of look at myself in this way as like this traveling storyteller that, you know, gets permission from these communities and natives to share stories and share history with people. And it's almost like I have a bunch of scrolls where I'm like, you want to hear a cool story about so-and-so? Like, I'm really excited because I started working for Manitoba back in 2023. Yeah, I love sneakers. Sneakers are my thing. I always looked at denim jackets as being like a badge of honor of ruggedness, that I believe in who I support. And who I support is Indigenous businesses, Indigenous people. And just kind of like the connections between astronomy, astrology, and like how we're just scientists. Like, though I wasn't part of their tribe, they still recognized me and saw me as community and as their people. Hi, I'm Tracie Jackson, and this is FC Day in the Life. I'm like, I can talk. I'm trying to just like fill my head with things. I'm like, okay, dear diary. And I've been on my own since I was 18 when I first moved away from for college back in Navajo in Eugene, Oregon. And then right after college, I actually interned in Portland, in Beaverton for a sportswear company. And then from there, ended up moving back home to Arizona for about, I think it was like 6 months before I finally got a job back in Portland, which was like what kept me here. And so for me, when I think of working remotely from home, I want my space to be my home space to be a safe space. I want my space to be something that I can sit in and enjoy my time with, especially if I'm here for multiple hours in the day. And so that's kind of like what inspired me to do my whole living room, with all these pop colors and things. And I think growing up in this Southwest where I'm so used to the sun every single day and running outside, being outside, feeling, the warmth on my skin, but then moving to the Pacific Northwest where I've gone over 200 days without seeing sunlight because of overcast days. And, I hate living in a space that feels just like super white. And so that's where I started painting my walls, and I started adding all these pictures and starting to collect different artworks, and they all just kind of just seem like they're from the same color scheme of a blue, a yellow, a red, a white. And Oregon has a special place in my heart personally, and with the hospitality that they've shown me in the state of Oregon, with all the different families I'm friends with and communities who've welcomed me onto their traditional homelands, I'm just so thankful for everything they did, because they made Oregon my second home, especially for like a little Navajo kid who had never lived anywhere else before. I've only lived in Arizona and Oregon. And that's something that I'm, that's why I've always tried to give back. That's why I always try to do, good. If it's, giving design work to the University of Oregon's student union or student program to help them, make jackets for powwow season for Mother's Day. I'm happy to share those things, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't have gotten my job. I wouldn't have gotten exposure. I wouldn't have, had the support I needed if it wasn't for the community here. And that's something that, I'm very thankful for, that even though I wasn't part of their tribe, they still recognized me and saw me as community and as their people. I've been thinking about leaving and going back home so I can be closer to my homelands and tradition and my own family, especially with my grandparents getting older. I was raised by my grandparents, and, they're the people I think of every time I go back home. Every time I visit, I'm always spending time with my grandparents. They're like the coolest people ever. Converted one of my bedrooms, still working on it, so it's still a work in progress. And when I come in here, I'm like, okay, I have some really cool art, I play some good music, maybe put some TV on, I have my sewing machine, I have a table dedicated to only working, no food on it or anything. Like, it's great. My grandparents are probably some of my favorite collaborators, because they're so talented, and they might not understand my ideas, but they believe in me. And I think that's the cool thing, is that they don't know where it's gonna go, but they know, like, hey, I trust Tracie. She makes really cool things. We don't understand what she's doing, but she makes it at the end of the day. So, but it is really cool to see this collaborative process I do with my grandparents, where sometimes I just can't do it because I don't have it here. And so I'll send pieces, in back home to them, and I'll, tell them how I wanted it to be designed. And sometimes they'll just do the soldering for me, and, we'll come back with pieces like this for sneakers. Like, these are some sneaker jewelry pieces that we've been making and designing. And it's just really cool to see that, like, me and my grandparents have this really cool relationship where we're creatives, we're makers, and so we bond over making stuff, even though they're not sneakerheads or were exposed to sneakers the way that I was. Like, we're finding common ground where, you know, we're making really cool stuff together. And I think that's the cool thing about, you know, the way that I was raised to make was like, you know, include everyone. You include family, you include community, you include friends. And because at the end of the day, it's meant to be shared. Honestly, beadwork was something that really helped my mental health because I had extensive knee surgery, and beading was the thing that really helped me stay positive. And, you know, I have, you know, I can make stuff like this where I'm experimenting with dimension now, or, you know, I'm playing with like natural stones and making things that, you know, just are me. I have my little workstation here that's a little smaller setup of what I have back home in Arizona. But then when I go visit Arizona, you know, I'm able to make like things like this with my family. And these are the pieces that my family makes for a living. And, you know, every time I go home, I try to learn as much as I can from my grandparents and, you know, try to learn from the skills that they learned, like the reticulation design, where it has this like very beautiful like silver texture to it. One thing that's been really cool that I've been getting into lately is hand making moccasins. Being a footwear designer, I've made shoes before through work, and I've actually have one here that I actually was taught how to make through manufacturing equipment. So when I first was a footwear designer, I actually made this shoe to learn how the footwear process works and how, you know, the different machinery you use and the manufacturing system and what order you have to do to make a shoe. And so this was like a really cool experience I got, where I got to like screen print, I got to cut out all my pieces, measure my pieces, use it on a last, and you know, final results is this upper. And yeah, this is just kind of where all of the magic happens for my artwork, my footwear, everything creatively that I do. And then you can see all like some of this footwear stuff that I designed and just my footwear collection. And yeah, you know, I love sneakers. Sneakers are my thing. It's just like an art piece within itself, and that's kind of the way that I've always looked at footwear, is its own canvas, its own art piece. And you know, the fact that you can wear it, to me, is such a cool thing about the way it's designed, is that it's functional design. And the fact that you do have to wear it means it has to, you know, it has to be designed to a point where it doesn't fall apart, it doesn't break apart. And that's where I think craftsmanship is so beautiful when you think about it in that way. And so these were really fun, you know, when I was able to get these ones on the sneakers app. But this one meant a lot to me to get, just because Dior is also Navajo. And I mean, she really put on for our community on these ones. I mean, to the point, even had like Nike on this side and then Diné on the other side, which I thought was so cool with the step design. It was like, what are those? Like, you know, asking me about them. And I think that's the cool part, is that I get to share my culture and our story with others who are curious by, you know, these grabbing people's attention. And I think that's the cool thing about fashion is your identity. Fashion is a statement, and it can be a political statement in the sense of like, you know, I'm showing people what I believe and who I support. And who I support is Indigenous businesses, Indigenous people, Indigenous artists. And that's, you know, how I love to show myself out, is like, I want my stuff to be handmade. I want myself to be quality. And that's what I think of when I think of Indigenous artists. It's really just that mindset of like, no questions asked, and trying without even thinking that, you know, failure is an option. I'm a little short. Yeah, I worked on these shoes and recently got them. One of the only like women-owned sneaker shops in North America, and I've been a huge fan of them, I think since 2020 or before 2020. But yeah, I got to work on these shoes, and I recently got them. They were being sold in Canada before they were in the US, so I had some friends in Canada get them for me. But yeah, it was like so cool to like get a pair of shoes that I worked on, and especially after leaving the company too. So these are so beautiful, and I'm so happy they came out so nicely. But yeah, these are some of the newest shoes that I just recently got, and you know, got to work on, which is even better to say. Yeah. And then, you know, Party 6000. But I think that's what makes it so much fun to be a footwear designer, is that people wear your stuff, and when you see people on the streets wearing your stuff, it's probably one of the coolest things and experiences to have. Especially with my native design stuff, seeing non-natives wear it, I'm always like, I wonder what made them pick it up. And I'm always like curious, like what, you know, spoke to them. I can get into like my footwear stuff. So I can get into this. This is kind of hidden that way. I can go over here. For me, this is something that will stay in someone's family for generations to generations. And I think that's when we think about sustainability, this is what sustainability means. And when I think of our moccasins, I think of how many years moccasins have been worn for and how many generations a pair can go through just through a family heirloom. And, you know, I've had my Kinlaw moccasins for decades almost, and it's been, you know, it still wears and it's really nice and still functions. And so I think about that when I'm designing sneakers. Yeah, and then one thing, footwear designer too, this is like a new project I was working on this year. And so my new Manitobah footwear are coming out this year, which is super exciting because I don't think a lot of people realize, like, with the footwear process, you work years in advance before something officially comes out. So like when I work on sneakers, sometimes I'm working in a 2 to 5 year timeline. And so sometimes some shoes will come out 5 years later, sometimes it's 2 years, but it's in between 2 to 5 years usually. Is like how long it takes to develop a shoe, get the design down, you know, figure it all out wise, like construction, and then even choosing materials. And so that's where I'm really excited because I started working for Manitobah back in 2023, the end of the year. And, you know, all of my new stuff is starting to come out, like this denim collection, which is really cool. And I'm excited to see what the community thinks of it because you know, seeing some denim moccasins is pretty badass. And a lot of the storytelling for this shoe, I'm actually working on some videos right now to tell it, some process videos for my own. I'll be back home on my res, like helping, you know, shoot these with our photographer, helping with styling, helping with location. And one thing I thought of when I was working on this collection was like thinking about how every native has like a denim jacket. I have a denim jacket, a lot of my friends have denim jackets, and so I was like, what if we made denim shoes? It's just like the denim material being super durable, super, breathable, but just like also iconically us. Like, I don't know, like, and that's where I thought of like, oh, what if you could put patches on here, or you could put artwork, paint on it. And I kind of looked at it as more like a canvas for us to express ourselves. And that's where this modern moccasin is really cool to see it come to life. And then adding the white outsole to make it even brighter and better. But yeah, this is the final version after all these, you know, different trials to understand, like, do we like this material? Do we prefer this one? And outsole colors and rubbers. So it's a lot of work that goes into like making product. And, you know, you do only get to see the end product when it's released, but there's years and years of work that goes into producing it and actually designing it, which is, you know, my world. And I mean, I think that's the cool part about denim and how everyone in our community has it and how everyone expresses it. I mean, even like my jackets up here, like I mean, maybe not blue denim right now, but like I have this OXDX jacket that I bought that was like a one of one. And I think one thing I'm known for fashion wise is like my jackets. I love collecting really cool jackets, but like, look at this back. And that's what I love about it, is like, it reminds me of home. It just is home for me. And that's where I love Jarrett's work, and OXDX as a brand is just like, it's so Navajo and it's just so beautiful. And then and Iggy is like, I love the name first off, Iggy. But like even this jacket I just recently got at Santa Fe at Diné, at their store in Santa Fe downtown. But like, this is so beautiful and it's so much fun. And even the silver pieces right here, the Pendleton, like I just love, this is what I love about Native fashion, is like, it makes a statement. Like I wore this to the casino recently and I was like so excited to have my little casino outfit with my little like mucklucks and stuff. And this one, so this jacket, like these items stand out. People, you know, have never seen things like this. I mean, this was like the first collaboration Supreme ever did with an Indigenous artist, which happened to be one of my friend Nick Courtney's uncles, who's out here in the Pacific Northwest. But to get the first Indigenous collab and Supreme was no questions asked what I had to do. And it came out in a turquoise, a red, and a gray, but the red to me was like, And so just trying to get out and find inspiration, if it's going to a museum or going to an art show or an art pop-up with some friends, seeing what's around, because one, stay in a good mental state, but also two, to be like more creative, I have to have something different every single day. And so my day can be very unique and different all the time, or it can be sometimes the same and structured. So it just kind of depends on what's going on or what season it is. And that's just kind of for me how I stay creative and keep in this mindset, honestly.
Pretty
Oh, the Navajo skies.
Yeah.
So the Navajo skies is, you're gonna love it. It's so badass. So they turn the planetarium into like a hogan, like visually, and they tell the star stories from the Navajo tribe. And our star stories are so badass. And like how we're just scientists. Like we're so knowledgeable about the stars, but then the stars come down and, you know, tell us how to make certain designs or certain formations. And I'm like, those are the things that I think are really cool, that I'm always trying to like learn more about. And especially with the Navajo Skies exhibit in Portland, one, it's, you know, something home away from home, and I always grew up with those stories being told to me by my grandparents, so it's really cool. But at the same time, like, I don't know, it's learning it, like, it's really cool to see OMSI, a science museum, actually talk about native stories and storytelling through the stars, because that's stuff that I don't think I would ever experience elsewhere, but yet they recognize it, and that's really cool. And so I'm really excited to like share it today.
I know you know you know this. I know you know you know this. Yeah. I know you know you know this. I know you know you know this. I know you know this.
It's so hard sometimes to like try to see, like, find native things in the city, but anytime there is, like, I always want to be there, always want to try to be the first one there to experience it, just because, you know, I miss it. Especially when something's like this, where it's Navajo skies, it makes me feel like I'm home. And to see all these people here, it's really exciting. Like, I came for the opening night when this first opened, and it was so popular that they had to bring it back for multiple weekends, and now it's like shows like every year now, which is really cool. And I think this is where people can learn a lot more about astronomy and astrology from like Indigenous people, because it talks about our stories, it talks about the creation. So yeah.
Navajo land. These stories illustrate principles and teachings of how to live with the cosmic order. The Navajo, who call themselves the Diné, meaning the people, develop ceremonies for protection, for healing. Many of the ceremonies are intrinsically related to the night sky.
First there were the Nahoko stars, the Nahoko Spa'at, the male revolving one. Then Nahoko Spa'at, the female revolving one. We call the sky Yadashil, Father Sky.
The holy people, the Diné, is what we say. So this was like such a cool experience, and I'm so happy that, you know, anytime there's something like this going on, I always want to share it with friends. And especially the food out here too has been so good and so tasty that it's made me even think more about my diet, more about Indigenous food, to even cooking. Like, I love cooking on the weekends. I bought recipe books, and I collect recipe books whenever I travel to other big cities or even countries. Like, I just went to Vietnam and just bought this banh mi recipe book about different types of banh mi's, and I'm so excited to like indulge in the culture there and learn more about their ingredients. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like the exposure to food in Portland has helped me become more passionate about food sovereignty within my own community. And I think that's where, in Portland, you know, being exposed to like Javelina, where they're an Indigenous pop-up that, you know, takes place at like local places. And, you know, I love when Javelina pops up at my favorite place to do go for drag shows and drag bingo. And that's where it's like even cool to see, you know, the things that I love doing in my day-to-day mix and blend with like culture and community in that way in the city. I feel like such a nerd because all the history I know of Arizona is like, oh, it's the biggest ponderosa pine forest in, you know, North America. One of my favorite places to go to. It's so cold outside. So usually get Tracie Jackson, which is soup. Oh my god, this looks so good. Got coked, but I'm a Pepsi native. Thankful for is like Bobby. So hot. Yeah, this place is like bomb food. So Bobby and I, like one of our friends, they taught us how to make the handmade noodles, the hand-pulled noodles, the rice noodles, and it was so good. That's where I love like Navajos, for example, because like in our culture, we're always taught like technology is useful and resourceful, and so we're always taught to like, you know, learn new technology. There's a Navajo pottery person back home who uses 3D printing as a way to create pieces for his pottery, not to do his process, but as a tool in his process. And that's kind of the way I look at like footwear design and just low-tech technology is like low-tech traditional ecological knowledge is the future of design. And it's, you know, finding those method of makes and how can we not cut corners, but utilize them in new ways that, you know, regenerate shoes or regenerate materials. And I think that's the future, is going back in time and looking at these processes and understanding why it took generations and generations to get the end result. But like what, you know, what is those things that we need to do for now? It's just trying to find solutions and find the connection of Indigenous people and making and how we can actually solve for a lot of these sustainable issues that we're dealing with right now. It's cold. Like in my family, we were one of the first families out on the res to have a wagon. And it's like, to think that wasn't even that long ago. My great-grandparents had a wagon. Well, you think about that, like my grandma, like, you know, our grandparents, they unfortunately went to boarding school, but like in their lifetime alone, they lived off the land without running water and electricity. And then to this day, now they have cell phones where they have AI on it. You know, we'll see if I, you know, where I end up after this. Who knows, I might move to another big city, or I might move back to Portland and continue to, you know, invest in the community here. But I'm excited to know that, you know, there's more out there and I can go anywhere I want and nothing can hold me back unless it's just myself.
Turquoise season, Mother Earth been bleeding. Sacred songs sung, so you know what I believe in. From sandstone paintings written on the canyon walls. Moonlight dances, medicine and fancy shawls. Sacred as the ancestors lost in warrior calls.